atmosphere. It's a ratio, okay? If it's 0.000765, it is still alive. If it's only 0.000385, it's 5,700 years old, etc., etc. The less it has, the older it is. This is how the theory works. It goes from a half to a fourth to an eighth to a 16th to not much, okay? They compare the amount of C14 in the object being dated with the amount in the atmosphere to estimate how long it's been dead. If only half of it has been, if it's only got half as much, it's assumed it died 5,730 years ago. Sounds good, but there are some assumptions that mess up everything. If I told you to fill a barrel with water, but there were holes in the barrel, as you're putting water in, it's leaking out. It's kind of like a checkbook, you know. You keep putting the money in, it keeps leaking out different places. But at some point, you're going to reach a stage called equilibrium. You'll never fill the barrel past that point unless you speed up the intake or cut down the outgo. The Earth's atmosphere is going to have the same problem. If you took a brand new planet Earth, created it, poof, and stuck it out going around the sun, 93 million miles away, it would start developing C14 from radiation and start losing it to decay. So the question is, they wondered this back in 1950, how long would it take Earth's atmosphere to reach equilibrium? The consensus was it would probably take about 30,000 years for the Earth to reach equilibrium. And then Willard Libby and the boys at the University of Chicago made a tragic mistake. They made two fundamentally, fatally flawed assumptions. They said, well, we know the Earth is millions of years old, mistake number one, so we can ignore the equilibrium problem. They ignored it. The problem is radiocarbon is still forming 28 to 37% faster than it's decaying, which carbon-14 is proof the Earth is less than 30,000 years old, or else it would all be stabilized by now. It would be stable in the atmosphere, and it's not, okay? We could talk all day about that. But basically, if an animal is still alive, it should give you about 16 clicks on your Geiger counter. If it's only giving you 8, you're going to say it's 5,700 years old. If it's only giving you 4, it's 11,000 years old, etc., etc. This is how carbon dating is done. I won't have time to cover all of the evidences I have, but I'll just give you a few examples of how it simply doesn't work. Because one good experiment is worth a pound of theory any day. Back in 1949, when they developed it, the lower leg of a mammoth dated 15,000 years old, but the skin dated 21,000 years old. Same animal. It's not working in 1949. 1963, living mollusk shells dated 2,300 years old. It's still not working, folks. 1970, at the proceedings of the 12th Nobel Symposium, they said if a carbon date supports our theories, we put it in the main text. If it does not entirely contradict them, we put it in a footnote. If it's completely out of date, we just drop it. Freshly killed seal, carbon dated 1,300 years old. One part of a mammoth is 40,000 years old, another part's 26,000 from the same animal. Now, we could talk all day about carbon dating, but here's living snails, carbon dated 27,000 years old, 1984, Science Magazine. I don't have time to cover them all, but watch my video number 7, which is why it's out there. 1992, 2 Colorado Creek mammoths in Alaska found side by side. One dated 22,000 years old, the other one was 16,000 years old. They're side by side. 1996, at Berkeley University, they used the most advanced dating techniques they have. They discovered these things that they thought were 250,000 years old actually were 53,000 to 27,000. Well, I'd like to point out, Your Honor, that is still a 96% error. If you think carbon dating proves the age of anything, you need your head examined. Thank you.
I'd like a show of hands of how many understood that. I guess we aren't the only liars here. I have a pamphlet here written by the Institute for Creation Research on radioactive isotopes. I'm quoting a sentence of the conclusion. They're doing investigation on radioactive isotopes. And the thing is called rate, and it says, "We would appreciate your involvement in this effort. The most important contribution you can make is through prayer. We recognize this is a monumental task, and we need you to pray that we have wisdom as we work. Science would never pray for success." I wanted to find out why the evolutionists and the creationists disagreed on this carbon dating thing so much, so I went to one of the most famous creationists that I know. Henry Morris is the past president of the Institute for Creation Research. In his pamphlet, the Institute for Creation Research Society, in March 1982, page 226, he explains why only dark carbon dating that shows a short time is effective. I quote, "When God squeezed energy into atoms, he squeezed and held the atoms so tightly that there was no unstable elements and therefore no radioactivity. At the fall of Adam and Eve, he relaxed his grip slightly, which affected every atom. It allowed some to become unstable, that is, radioactive. It's all because of Adam and Eve's sin that we have unstable radioactivity. Isn't that right?" Want to add anything to this? We don't need that any more time. We're done.
Okay. Let me go ahead and pose the next question to you. I'd like to give you guys an open-ended one, too, for fairness' sake. Let me just read the question to you verbatim, and then please talk on this topic. The question says, in evolution, there appears to be no real purpose to life. What hope do you have to offer me to even bother to continue to live? So I guess...
No, what did he say?
For the sake of open-endedness, please, I guess we're talking about morality, purpose, anything along those lines.
Well, let me point out one thing, that this is sort of confusing terms. There may not be a purpose ostensibly defined for the universe as a whole or for society as a whole even. But that doesn't mean that an individual could not set up a purpose for him or herself. I'm going to live first, then I decide what's worthwhile for me to strive for in my life. If I simply subject myself to the mass and say, because they don't have a purpose, I'm going to kill myself, there's something demented. I think I need counseling at that point for all practical purposes here. So here again, I think purpose is something that we create individually for ourselves. It's not something that we deduce from the nature of the universe in any way. I'm sure that everyone here has some kind of a purpose in their existence, defined by themselves, defined where they're going to go. So that would be my take on that. And did you want to?
Sure. Look at DNA changes, and it changes so that animals and plants survive. If the DNA changes in a brain of an animal, to make that animal breed successfully by taking care of its young, taking care of its brothers and sisters, and taking care of its family, that animal may survive. If, on the other hand, the DNA goes in a different direction and the animal learns to swim or fly, that animal can survive. Certain animals have more emotions than others. We can measure the emotions in dogs. Anybody here own a dog that doesn't have any emotions? You know, my two dogs have all kinds of emotions. I can tell when they're guilty, and I can tell, you know, when they're happy, and I can tell when they're sad. And it's good for them. They have the DNA in their brains that gave them the ability to be pack animals. And they survive because of it. Now, some animals, like cats, and how many cat owners in there know that cats aren't pack animals? They don't care if you're home or not. You know, dog owners know the dogs can't wait for you to get home. The cats survive because of the way they evolved. Human beings survive because of the way we evolved too. So it's important to us to take care of our children, it's important for us to make sure that our families survive. It's important for us to get mad once in a while. It's important for us to love. Those things have to be able